Okay, so I've been talking a lot about the 2024 election and the upcoming 2028 election. And I just feel like I have a lot more to say here. So here's just me vibing on it. So like I feel like and I think why I keep talking about this topic is because I think I see such a lack of a lack of willingness to engage in like nuance, both about like the 2024 election, the 2020 election, the 2016 election, right? Like, and even like hell, I'd even argue about 2008 and 2012 as well, right? Like, I see such a lack of like nuance and engagement, and I think that like in the absence, a lot of like narratives have taken hold about 2024 and about like what happened and why, right? And so like I feel like I want to like talk through some of that, right? And like where I think the place I want to start is like the Democratic Party needs to stop talking about Donald Trump. like I you don't even say it's Voldemort. His name should be Voldemort to the Democrats at this point, right? Like, don't talk about Donald Trump. And why I think that is because like I think for the last decade, the Democratic Party has been saying to itself and to its vote to its voters like, well, we're not Donald Trump, so you should vote for us. And I see, and as I've been having conversations about both, again, 2024 and 2028, like I see people doing this same thing, right? They're like, well, I'll vote for whoever is not Donald Trump in 2028, and in 2024 we should have just not voted for Donald Trump, right? And like I say this as someone who like voted for Kamala Harris, right? So like don't peg me, like don't try to peg me as a Trump voter. I'm obviously not, or even a Jill Stein voter, because that's just is bad. That's not bad. I voted for Kamala Harris is what I'm trying to say. And so like what happens though is, and so I think what's happened is like Democrats have gotten so into this mode of like, well, we're not Kamala Harris. Well, we aren't Donald Trump, so therefore, like, that means we are the good guys, right? And what we want to do is return us to this sense of normalcy, right, in which we are all accustomed and familiar. But the problem that I think the Democrats aren't like wrestling with is like what that normalcy means and who it harms, right? Because like the that normalcy that they're talking about returning to is the same sort of late stage capitalism that continues to harm black and brown people, right? They're talking about the same economic and social policies that, like, while on their face appear progressive, are still very like harmful and don't like push us forward in society, right? Like we had 2 terms of Barack Obama, another term of Joe Biden, and we don't got basic shit like paid parental leave at the federal level. Like, so it's like, well, that's what you want to return us to? It's like, Kamala Harris is like, well, during the campaign kept saying, like, well, we're not going back, like, as a way to, like, position herself against Donald Trump, which also, very funny, I'm using Kamala Harris's book to hold up my mic right now, so I don't know, the K-Hop's gonna come at me for that probably, but, like she kept saying that in this way to like position herself against Donald Trump, like not recognizing that it's like, yeah, but the only thing you're offering people is the status quo, right? And I think that like so like and so why I keep saying is like the Democrats don't need to stop talking about Donald Trump is because that is for the last decade the only thing they've known how to like position themselves as, right? Like we're not Trump, so like vote for us, right? And it's like you just need to stop talking about him, right? Because like why are you worried about what the next bitch is doing? If I ask you, hey, person, Democrat, like, what's your plan? And you look at me and say, well, Donald Trump, he sucks, and we're not that. The fuck are you talking about? What? What the fuck are you talking about? I asked you what you're gonna do. I didn't ask you. I didn't ask you what this bitch got going on. I asked you what you're gonna do, and like you just need to stop talking about him, and you need to develop a policy platform that is like rooted and based in what you believe in, and not just in opposition to the worst nigga alive, right? Like yes, he is the worst. Great, you're the worst. He's the worst. Great. How are you going to be better than that? Right. So like, stop talking about Donald Trump. Like, not even the Democrats. Just stop talking about that man. Like, yes, like of course, like, and I say this in the midst of like a government shutdown and like all the fucking the girl, I could sit here, I could spend the rest of this hour talking about all the horrible shit that Donald Trump does. I don't need to do that, right? Like, and so that's not me saying that like we shouldn't critique Trump's administration and that we shouldn't continue to like fight and push back and like protest, particularly like the ICE raids and shit like that. Like, let's yes yes, someone said in the chat, said yes, like sourdough starter, stop feeding it. Correct, just stop. Just stop, right? You don't feed a sourdough starter like I did in 2020, the shit dies, right? Okay. So my second, and so yeah, stop talking about him. I have a note here, so I'm checking it. The second thing that Democrats need to stop doing is like intentionally limiting themselves in terms of possibility. And like Dominique Morgan, who I love, who is fucking brilliant, she talks about like possibility models, right? And like someone said, if quote this Democrat isn't a Republican doesn't work, what then? Dems need to stand for something, right? Correct. And that's the point that I'm getting to now. Like Dominique talks about like possibility models and like being able to see what's possible. And I think like I posed a question the other day and I asked folks like, okay, if it's not AOC, who I think it should be in 2028, but like whatever, people can feel differently, but like if it's not AOC, then like who is it? Who's the person you want to vote for? And like so many people, like in another video I posted as well, like talking about why I think AOC is the best choice. A bunch of people were like, well, I don't think she's electable, so we need to go with someone like Andy Bashir, who like, admittedly, great choice. Like at least from what I've seen from Andy Bashir, I do like him. But then other people were like, well, we gotta go with just a white dude. We need Gavin Newsom. Bitch, what? Gavin Newsom? Don't even get me started on fucking Gavin Newsom. That is Patrick Bateman 2.0. But like, don't even get me started on Gavin Newsom. But like, so many people, like, there are limits of what's possible. They unintentionally constrain themselves because of fear, right? And I think part of why people do that is because they make a spurious correlation between the outcomes of the 2016 election and the 2024 election, and they use that as like evidence of like what's true. And so what do I mean by that? Right? So Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, Kamala Harris lost in 2024. So then a whole bunch of people have now told themselves, oh, so women and black women can't win, right? Like if they didn't win, that means that like, right, like so women and black women can't win, and it's like that's, and like again, this is not me saying that like racism, sexism, right, like all of those factors did not play into Harris and Clinton's losses. I'm not at all, I would never argue that. I'm not an idiot, right? So absolutely they did. But to look at those elections and only say that the only reason those two people lost is because of race and gender, I think is intellectually lazy. I think it's intellectually lazy, and I think it is a refusal to truly engage with the underlying reasons why Trump has been elected twice, right? And so I'm going to start with Clinton, and then I'm going to move to Harris. So 2016. So Hillary Clinton, because of a lot of sexism, like was and continues to be deeply unpopular, right? And part of that, like, is because, like, she was first lady, and, when Bill Clinton, let me do a sidebar on Bill Clinton, because not enough people talk about this. Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky was, how old was Monica Lewinsky? Maybe 22, 23, maybe. That nigga was the president. Why, like, he didn't directly sexually assault her, but like that's gross, right? And so like the fact that like America decided to villainize this child, right? Like think about how young a 22, 23-year-old is. Like think about how young, like America hates women, right? That's an aside. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. Hillary Clinton. a lot of people uh, in the 1990s, like Hillary was like vilified as like, this like stone bitch who just like, wasn't like, right. Like a lot of people like, and feminists didn't like her either because they thought she was on some like stand by her man shit. Right. So like that also matters. So like Hillary Clinton was unlikable or like she was hated again because of misogyny, like starting in the 90s, right? Like when her husband became president, when her husband was president. Then her husband leaves office. She goes, was she in the Senate first or was she Secretary of State first? I think she was Senate first and then Secretary of State, right? So she is in the Senate, becomes Secretary of State, Benghazi, right? Like, and like, I think there's a lot of like nuance in the Benghazi situation, but like a lot of people like did not like her, right? And so then 2016 comes around, and first of all, Joe Biden was pissed, right? He was mad because he felt like, well, I was the vice president, so why the fuck is it not my turn, right? So he was mad. And then she rubbed people the wrong way, particularly like in alienating the folks like me who were excited about Bernie Sanders in the way that like the Democratic Party sidelined Bernie Sanders in favor of Hillary Clinton. Um, uh, so like she was someone with whom the American people had a ton of experience with and didn't like that experience. People were pissed at the DNC in 2016 for the way that they marginalized her and marginalized Bernie Sanders in favor of her, right? And then like the basket of deplorables thing, like, right, we can sit here and reflect on the history of that and whether that mattered and how that mattered. But whether or not that specific instance mattered, it mattered in that like it showed to a whole bunch of people that like the Democrats were exactly who they thought they were, right? And so like she loses, right? She loses, and like I think it's and then that's not even to factor in the centrism that she was presenting throughout that campaign and the way that she was basically was running as like a 2000 era Republican, right? So like so then she loses, right? So then she loses, right? And so then so then now, okay, so we all, okay, I'm going to talk about the 2020 election because I feel like we don't actually talk about it enough and we should talk about it more. I don't actually think that Joe Biden would have been elected to the presidency if, someone in the chat said, people excuse the thumb on the scale for Clinton because Sanders wasn't a Democrat. I can't see the rest of your comment, but it says O'Malley was, and I'm assuming you mean Dylan O'Malley. Is it O'Malley Dylan? Whatever the fuck that lady. I think that's what you're talking about. Yes. What are they talking? 2020 election. People sort of skip over the 2020 election, but like I don't actually. If it were not for the pandemic, and for the uprising that happened in 2020 in response to the murder of George Floyd, I don't actually think that Joe Biden would have been elected. I don't actually think he would have been elected. First of all, the nigga was already old. How old was Joe Biden when he was elected? How old was Joe Biden when elected president? 78. Good fucking God. This nigga was 78 years old. Side note, wondering your thoughts on local Minneapolis mayoral. I'm leaning heavily toward Fate. I am actually getting to interview Omar Fate this weekend, and I'm also doing a live with Jazz Hampton next week. A lot of thoughts about the Minneapolis mayoral election, so they will be out. Also, I posted a video about this like last week, so it's there. 2020, girl, I've been unmedicated ADHD for months, and it's really just showing up right now, but that's all right. Y'all rocking with me. So, 2020 election, I don't think he would have been elected, right? Because I think that the 2020 election, I think people, like, in our collective memory, we sort of remember it as, like, yes, people were sick of Trump and they just wanted to go back to the Democrats, and so they elected Joe Biden. And I don't actually think that was it. I think it was like much like we've been seeing for the last 20 years. It was a change election, right? Like shit was fucking out of control and crazy in 2020, and people wanted radical change, right? And so, like, I think that's why Joe Biden was elected. But like, it did not I think for some people it represents like this moment in which like the Democrats were popular again. They loved, like, people wanted Democrat. Like, I don't think that's what it. People were just like tired of Donald. People were just like tired and wanted change, right? Which are two different things. Like, they overlap, but they're different things. So then 2024 rolls around, and I think Joe Biden's legacy is now like everything that has been wrought as a result of a second Trump presidency. All of that is Joe Biden's legacy now, right? And he did it to himself. I do not feel bad for that man. You're not going to make me feel bad for the man who got up there and treated Anita Hill like that. No, I'll never feel bad for that man, right? So, like, the 2024 election, so let's put Kamala Harris to the side. We've got Joe Biden right here. And so not only did I read 107 Days, which is right here, I also listened to an audiobook, the book that, what is that nigga's name from CNN? Jake Tapper. The book that Jake Tapper wrote with some other person whose name I don't remember. But like, it came out before 107 Days, and it was like this deeply researched book about the 2024 election, like Joe Biden's decision, like leading up to it. What is that book called? Hold on. It was actually very interesting. And I would suggest it to folks. It's called Original Sin. And the other author's name is Alex Thompson. And listening to that book, you really, like, I think that book is much more damning than 107 Days is, because it really shows the depths to which Joe Biden's team, particularly, what's that man's name? Mike Donnellan? Mike Donnellan is going to hell. Like, Mike Donnellan is going to hell for it. Someone said hard read. Absolutely. Because you're just watching it and you're just like, what the fuck? Because Joe Biden running for re-election was disastrous. It was disastrous. And Asted Herndon was like trying to tell people for like a year leading up to the election that like everybody thinks Joe Biden is too old. They don't like him. They don't want him to run for president. Stop, like, right? But like, it was his hubris, right? It was because he felt like he was owed the presidency in 2016, and he was mad at Barack Obama for not endorsing him for president. And so when he got his chance in 2020, and so then when 2024 rolled around, he was like, no, you bitches already took it from me once, you're not taking it again, right? And like, and now this, right? We are, 2.5 weeks into this fucking government shutdown. This, right? This nigga making AI videos on Twitter every day, right? Like, that's Joe Biden's legacy, right? And so if we segue that into Kamala Harris, right? Like, she was not set up for success, right? And I think what she details again in 107 Days, like, is the ways in which, like, at every turn, the Biden administration hampered her, right? At every turn they were they treated her poorly. They did not take her seriously as a candidate. They in fact worked to undermine her as a candidate. And like, right, like, she was not set up for success. And right. And I think this is the thing that people forget. This is where, like, I was talking about nuance to start this. This is where people struggle with, like, nuance around the 2024 election, because I think people want to see Kamala Harris as either a victim or a perpetrator, when in fact, she is both, right? She is both. She was harmed and victimized by the Biden administration. She was set up to fail, right? She was put on a glass cliff, right? Like, she was the victim of like racist and gendered stereotypes and the intersection of those things, right? Like, all of that is true. And she actively made choices during the 2024 election that contributed to her loss, right? And being able to, and I think that, like, too often I see people wanting it to be a clean narrative on one side or the other, and it's not, right? Like, it's not. It's a much more complicated and complex story than that. Um, um, and like I don't struggle to hold that nuance, right? Like I don't struggle to hold it, but like a lot of folks do, right? And so like she is both a victim and she is both a perpetrator, right? And so in this dichotomy, I'm going to talk about her as the perpetrator, right? Because like it's clear how we set her up as a victim, right? So as a perpetrator, she continued to reaffirm her support for Israel throughout that campaign and in this book. She campaigning with Liz Cheney is fucking diabolical. It's diabolical. Dick Cheney Dick Cheney manufactured a war in the Middle East to make money. And we're out here, and you're out here campaigning with his daughter, Kamala. Girly pop. What we, come on, girl. Come on, girl. She was like, um, she made bad choices during her campaign, and we can be honest about that, right? And we can also be honest about the fact that like she didn't have time to course correct. She did not have time to like I think about somebody like Graham Plattner, who like I don't actually think made mistakes. I think his posts are just like, yeah, I don't know, got me, right? But like he's dealing with a challenge in his campaign, but he has enough time before the election to like deal with it, correct it, and move forward, right? And Kamala just didn't, right? She didn't. Um, I'm saying all this to say is like, I think what has happened then in the wake of 2016 and 2024 is that the Democrats have now said that Democrats, the Democratic Party, Democratic voters have now said to themselves, it's like, oh, well, women can't win. The U.S. just isn't ready for anybody to be president who isn't just a white man, right? Someone in the chat said, if they keep chasing Republicans, they'll just alienate Democrats. And this is, excuse me, and this is the thing that gets me. Like, the Republican Party is never like, how do we get Democrats on our side? They're not. They're just like, girl, we're racist and sexist. If you want to join us, come on. Like, they just, and again, this is not me saying that I obviously find the Republican Party abhorrent, right? Obviously. But like, if I just look objectively at what they do, they're just like, here's our policy, here's our platforms, here's what we believe in. It's the worst, most noxious shit imaginable, but this is what we believe in. Get with it or get lost. Now, that's a much more simplistic story, because obviously what we're missing in there is like the amplification of right-wing content and the ways that like social media platforms like push us toward right-wing extremism, right? So like, obviously, like, the story is much more complex than that, but like at its core, right, the Republicans are like, here's the shit we believe, here's what we gonna do, right? And so like, what point was I making? Oh, I was getting back to like, I was saying that like the Democrats look at Harris's loss and they look at Clinton's loss and they say, well, look, see, this is why women can't win. We just need to run Gavin Newsom. And it's like, no, what you need to do is run a candidate who's about something. You need to run a candidate who's not just a centrist liberal Democrat who doesn't actually have beliefs or a true economic populist platform. Have we tried that? Okay, like, it's like, you want the most, like, I think what I've seen post 2024 is like, it feels like Democrats want the simplest solution possible to the problem, right? They're like, well, we just need to stop running women and then we'll win. Or like Ezra Klein, it's like, well, let's just do some transphobia and that'll help us win. It's like, it's like, have you guys tried the other thing? The other thing being economic populist. Have you tried that? Have you tried speaking to the effects of late stage capitalism and how it is making it impossible for people to buy homes or to afford food or put their kids in daycare? I don't have children, but bitch. These daycare costs are out of, like, it's like, let's try that first before fucking throwing trans people under the bus. Why don't we try to do something helpful, useful? Let's just try, right? And then every time you get somebody, you get a Zohran Mamdani, who Hakeem Jeffries last time I checked, still has not endorsed. Neither has Chuck Schumer, I believe. Right? You get a person like Graham Plattner, who the DSCC just created a pact with Janet Mills, right? Like another set, right? It's like every time they get somebody who is speaking to that economic populism in a way that resonates with voters, right? They then again capitulate back to centrism, right? And it's like, yeah, so it's like the problem is not women, black women, it's not trans people, right? It's like it's your policies. It's your policies. Why don't you try having better policies, right? And like it's so disheartening, like again, in the conversations that in some of the videos I've been making about the 2028 election and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like there's a whole bunch of people who've just like bought into this idea that somehow she can't win because she's Latinx, right? Because she's a Latinx woman, she can't win. What, like, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is one of, if not the best, like, orators I've ever seen, right? She is up there with Zoran Barack, like, she's an amazing orator. She speaks so plainly and so bluntly about the crises affecting America and how they overlap, right? She is not she's been in Congress for a few years now, but she's still seen as like an outsider because of the way that she gets marginalized in the Democratic Party. Right? She is not some fucking Nepo baby who like came up in politics, right? Like she's just like a working class woman from the Bronx who just like was like, hey, I see a problem, I want to do something about it, right? And it's like that is the most like you don't have to like and so like it feels like the Democratic Party and its voters like feel like they have to like constrain themselves or like constrain their sort of imagination about what's possible based on rules that like don't actually I think exist, right? And like if I think back to the election of Barack Obama, right? And like someone said this, AOC and Trump won her district. Right. Why do you think that is? Right? Like, and what I love about AOC is that I remember after the election, she got on, like, she's always like on Instagram stories. And like, I remember she like posed a question to people. She's like, you know, people who voted for me, like, why did you vote for Donald Trump? And I can't remember like what the like answer that came out of that, but she like genuinely engaged in the conversation because she recognizes that like there's something there. And I think, and like I knew there was something else I wanted to talk about, and this is it. Like it always, I think that like in our imagination of the world, I think that like popularly we conceptualize the rise of Donald Trump to be solely about racism and white supremacy. Now don't get me wrong, it is, right? And like they're not even hiding the white supremacy no more. They're like creating refugee policies that are like whites only, like, so that like that's what they do. That's true. And again, because it's right, like it is also about the rise of Donald Trump is also about the effect of late stage capitalism and globalism. And to ignore that, right, is to ignore reality. It's to ignore the material conditions that people are facing. And I think, you know, and I actually have this pulled up, and the people on TikTok Live can't see this, so I'll just walk through it. And I'll screen share here. Like, I always think about this map from the New York Times that they published. When did they publish this? In December of 2024. It is showing a shift in the margins from 2020 to 2024. And it's a map of the entire US, and it has arrows in red and blue indicating the direction to which like states and actually I think this is counties, the directions to which counties shifted either Republican or Democrat in the 2024 election. And this map, like I return to this map probably at least a couple times a month, either in something I'm reading or thinking about or writing, because it is red. Like the entire country shifted red in the 2024 election, save for there. What's this up here? This is Seattle-ish, around Colorado. This like cluster in Georgia, right? But like there's some clusters, but like it is just red everywhere, including. And I don't know how to zoom in here, but like I've looked at this map before, including what is it, Kings County, whatever the county is that Manhattan is in, was plus 10 more Republican in 2024. They had the hose in Bushwick. That's not even Bushwick. That's not Bushwick. But you know what I mean? Like, they had the New York City hose voting for Donald Trump, right? Like, and you can't just say, like, yeah, racism is in this, but you can't just say that's the story, right? What's a better story, right, is the fact, or what's a more accurate story, is the way that people in 2024, were responding to record high inflation. We're responding to the cost of housing, both to purchase housing and to rent, right? Responding to the childcare crisis, responding to groceries, right? Like, and I'm not saying, and I don't say that to like justify people's like vote for Trump, right? Like, I don't think that's useful. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think that's interesting, right? I think like, I think I look at this and I say, it's like, well, what's the cause of that, right? Like, and yes, of course, racism, like classism, like all of the like anti-immigrant bias, right, is baked into all of that, right? Of course it is, right? And I'm never making the argument that it isn't. What I'm saying though is that there's an and there, and that the and is like, okay, but what's underlying that, right? What would it be that makes someone say, I find Donald Trump's positions on immigration to be horrible and horrific, but I'll still vote for him. What's the but there, right? And the but is always about people's material conditions, right? And like so if you have one candidate who's saying, we're not going back, we're gonna uphold the status quo, we're not make America great again, but like if you have one candidate in Kamala Harris like saying these things, that like someone in the chat just said, we are searching for the answer to a lie. They cheated. I'm going to come back to that because I actually have a lot of points. I actually have a lot of thoughts about that. Give me 1 second. Like, you have one candidate who's saying, I'm going to uphold the status quo. And you have another candidate saying, I'm going to smash the status quo and make it so that things are okay again. Even though that's not true, right? Like, that story is not true. But like, but if you just take those stories at their face value, which story sounds better, right? Like to a person who's like struggling to afford food. Which story sounds better to someone who wants to buy a house? And I think that because we struggle and we don't want to wrestle with that like question of like economic inequality, right? And like the what it has done to people and up into their lives, I think we like end up in this place where we're like, okay, well, the election, Donald, people vote for Donald Trump just because they're racist. It's like, okay, well, yes, they are. You're talking to someone who wrote their entire dissertation about the structure of race and racism in the United States, right? Like, it's about racism. Of course it is. And, right? Like, I'm always saying and. Now, bringing it back to this point about someone said they cheated. And I know that they like, or we're arguing this point, they lied. Here's the thing. So, okay. Or they lied, they cheated, right? Like, signaling that, like, the 2024 election was stolen from Kamala Harris or stolen from the Democratic Party. Here's the thing. Again, yes and. It is yes and. Yes, the Republicans have cheated because of the ways that voting, particularly at the presidential level, is structured in America, right? Because they cheat through gerrymandering, right? Packing and cracking black voters and other voters of colors in districts to dilute their votes, and that's going to get worse when the Supreme Court guts the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, right? Yes, that happens. They cheat in voter ID laws and right, like in all of the structural ways that we know about. Of course they do. And also some Republican, hold on, and I don't want to say this without confirming that I'm right. Some Republican just bought like Dominion voting systems. Trump's most reviled voting company just sold to a GOP official. So I'm looking at a headline from CNN from October 9th, so a couple weeks ago. It says former GOP election official buys Dominion voting system, says he'll push for paper ballots, right? Like, his name is Scott Leondecker. He sounds terrible. So like, yes, they cheat, right? This is not me arguing that Republicans don't cheat. Of course they do. That's why the Supreme Court. Samuel Alito is out of his fucking mind. Like, yes. And also, fuck you too, Clarence Thomas. I didn't forget you either, bitch. The day you die, I'm going to be celebrating on your grave. Fuck Clarence Thomas. Anyway, so yes, they cheat. Yes, they cheat. And, again, it's and I think the Democrats tell themselves this story about the 2024 election, right? They tell themselves the story about the 2024 election. Some Democrats do, of course not all, that like there's no way Kamala Harris would have lost, so it had to be cheating. And it's like it's some sort of Olivia Pope Defiance-esque type scandal, right? And I just don't think that's true. I just don't think it's true. Especially, if I go back to this election map that I was just talking about a minute ago, that shows this like totally rightward shift in this country. I don't think it's true. I think that like when you tell yourself this story that like Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party was robbed of something, or that it had to be nefarious, that was the only way she could have lost. I think what you do then is you refuse to engage with the complexity of the 2024 election, which is like entirely what I've been talking about here, right? Like, I think you would refuse to engage when you engage in election denialism, because that's what it is, right? You are buying into this narrative that like the Democrats are actually popular and that the only way they could have lost is with something nefarious, right? And that then encourages the Democratic Party to not then take on true self-reflection about their candidates, about their policies, about someone said it's not even an empowering story. How does that narrative help propel you? It's lazy, right? I do think it's intellectually lazy. I do think it's intellectually lazy, right? Because it means then you don't have to engage with any of the complexity that I've been talking about the 2024 election or any election, right? You just get to say, well, nope, you just cheated, so I don't have to do anything differently, because if you didn't cheat, I would have won. And it's like, it's like if you're playing a game of chess and somebody beats you and you're like, well, the only way you could have cheated, the only way you could have won is if you did X, Y, and Z, whatever. And it's like, well, no, maybe you just played a bad game. Like, and that's fine. You played a bad game, but in order to get better, you have to admit that, like, you didn't play as well as you could have. And, like, you need to think about how you're going to do better so that you can win the game next time. Right? Like, that's what it's about. And so, like, yes, the Republicans cheat because they build in systemic advantages that allow them to win. And I just don't think, and I think beyond the normal ways, like, that it's relevant. I don't think it's relevant, like, here. So yeah, I hope that, what's my hope? I hope that, like, I hope that people can, I hope that, like, I think it's a couple things, right? I hope that, like, the Democratic Party, like, gets serious Like I hope they get serious and start like really thinking about the like stakes of what it is that like we are up against. I really hope that's the case. I hope that people like Chuck Schumer are voted out of office. Like I said, AOC is, I think, would be probably like the best candidate for 2028. But if she doesn't run for president, she is 100% going to run for Senate. She's going to run for Chuck Schumer's seat, and he knows that, and he's fucking terrified, as he should be, right? Hakeem Jeffries needs to go. They need to go because they have shown that they are ill-equipped to meet this moment. They don't have the media savvy. They don't have the like wherewithal. They don't have the stomach for it. That's the problem. That's the problem with the Democratic Party. I think writ large, they're a bunch of bitches. That's actually the thing. That's the thing that's crazy about the Democratic Party. They're a bunch of bitches, and it's like. Like, how are you niggas this scary? Like, y'all just scared. Like, why are y'all so scared? That's the thing. Like, sometimes I'm just like, y'all are really just y'all just scared. Y'all literally just are scared of like pissing anybody off ever. Like, you're scared of like of just scary, just a bunch of bitches. But so I hope that stops too. I think like. Scared with a safety net on makes sense, right? Like, what are you afraid of? Like, girl, I hope the Democratic Party stops being afraid, and I think in order to do that, they have to start supporting and elevating people again. And I don't want to cape too much on no white man, because he a white man, and like I like the video I posted like yesterday on my TikTok. White people are always going to disappoint you. Give them enough time. You give them enough time and they'll show you, right? But like elevating people like Graham Plattner, right? Like, and the thing, like, and again, I'm not like, are they called Mainers? People who live in Maine, are they called Mainers? I think they're called Mainers. Like, so I don't live in Maine, so like I can't say who y'all should vote for. That's y'all's business. Y'all got crabs. I don't know what y'all got. Katie, I don't know what y'all be doing. I don't know what y'all got going on over in Maine. So y'all vote for whoever you want. But like the Democratic Party, I see this question. You think it would be a good idea for all leftists to register as Dems for primary access? I love that question. Give me 1 second. I will answer it. The fuck was I saying? Oh, the Democratic Party needs to start like endorsing and elevating people who scare them. You have so somebody like Graham Plattner, who is like, and again, not a Mainer, but like I continue to like see clips of him. And he's like that. I saw a clip where someone's like, you can't see the person, they're off screen, but they're like asking, they're like, and what are you going to do about the immigrants? And a bunch of people in the hall are like, yo, no, that's not cool. And like Graham Plattner, like he takes the question and he's like, at its core, here's what that person's actually asking about, right? Now, do that mean you got to deal with some nonsense and some fuckery and some white people that probably I wouldn't be willing to deal with? Absolutely. But like Graham Plattner is able to speak really plainly about what he believes, and is not afraid of what the consequences are going to be. Right? Like I saw a clip, he was getting interviewed by, those white women from the I've Had It podcast. Especially that one lady, Jennifer. The white women they have truly had it. They have truly had it. Every clip I see is amazing. But she was getting interviewed by, he was talking to Jennifer Welsh, and she asked him, she was like, would you endorse Chuck Schumer for like Senate leader? Graham Plattner doesn't fucking mince words. He says no, I wouldn't. And like then goes on to expound on his answer, and is that probably part of the reason why the DSCC is choosing to endorse Janet Mills? Probably. It probably is. But you know what? He stood on business and he meant it. He meant it, right? And he's not afraid to say, you're ineffective, this isn't working anymore, right? And until the Democratic Party is willing to like be afraid, or is willing to like do things that scare them, right? Like elevating people like Graham Plattner, like endorsing someone like Zoran Mamdani as like the leader of like the largest city in this country. Until you're willing to do that, you're gonna stay stuck in this position, right? If you in 2028, like we're gonna have a primary, right? And like I think realistically the candidates are Gavin Newsom. I think Pete will probably do it. I think Pete will probably do it. JB Pritzker, he's not gonna get very far, but he's rich, so he's gonna be like, look, I got my own money, I can do whatever I want. I think it's AOC. I think AOC. Who else? Do I think Tim Walz will do it? I don't know about Tim Walz. He is running for governor. He's running for a third term here in Minnesota as governor. So I feel unclear about Tim. I don't think Bernie will do it. Bernie's too old. Love Bernie. Love you. Bernie, you're too fucking old. He's already 84. He can't, it's not him. Bashir. Yes, someone said Bashir. I think, here's the thing. I don't know if Bashir has the national profile to do it. Like, I know about Andy Bashir, but like I'm fucking in the weeds of politics. Like, but it's like I don't know if Andy Bashir has the name recognition. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's still really obviously like early, right? And like the people who are like interested in doing it are like clearly like building up their profile over the next like a couple of years. Why don't you think Pritzker will? I don't think Pritzker will do well because he's rich, and I think because he's rich and we don't need another like rich asshole running our party. And I think that like, what is he like? Is he heir to like a hotel fortune? Pritzker, what's his, from Wikipedia, one of the Pritzker family, one of the wealthiest families in the United States. Its major fortunes in the 20th century. It's the expansion of Hyatt Hotels Corporation by Jay Pritzker. Don't nobody need that. No, we don't need that. Yeah. But someone already saying they already have Chicago. We don't need that. And then someone, I want to go back and answer that question. So this question someone had about like leftists registering as Democrats, and so because TikTok has a bunch of context collapse, I asked a question the other day about like, I was saying, if you don't want to vote for AOC, who would you vote for? And a bunch of people answered that question who I actually wasn't talking to, because I think people just, they hear what they want to hear and whatever. But I was actually really talking to people who were saying that like AOC like didn't like her position on Israel and like thus wouldn't vote for her, right? Which like, again, I'm not gonna tell nobody how to vote. Totally valid. I would say yes, leftists need to be like voting and registering as Democrats, or like at least in like for the primaries, because like you have to vote to have a say and like shape that to shape the process how you want it, right? Now, has the Democratic Party proven that like they will say, see how you voted, fuck you, we don't care, we're still going to give you a bad candidate, a la Hillary Clinton? Yes, they've shown us they will do that. But I think though still, and this is why like me as someone who's like, I do not identify as a Democrat, like, oh brother, please don't ever call me a Democrat, don't ever call me that. I vote for Democratic candidates because it is truly the lesser of two evils in the American system. One party is like, hey, do you want to be a slave again? And the other party is like, not slavery, but bad wages. And so it's so like, I don't know, like if those are my two options, I guess I choose this, you know. And so why I talk about the Democratic Party is because I like am inclined to vote for Democrats. And so like and so in what I'm doing in trying to like talk about the Democratic Party and like talk about who I think would be good candidates and why, and reflecting on like why I do all of this is because like I'm trying to push us more progressive, right? Because like I think people think that like it is through like talking that we shift the Overton window. And like how do I say that a different way? Like like I think about like the right wing apparatus that exists. Um and like how they have over the last decade plus, actually longer than that, right? Like you have Rush Limbaugh, like even longer than that, but like let's just say in the digital age, like how they've been able to move and shift their party is largely through, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, right? Like creators on those platforms, like continuing to push the party further and further and further right? Like, and which is why, um, there's an entire apparatus of support for right wing content creators, right? Because like it is about like pushing the party to like where they want to see it, right? And so like I think I'm trying to, in whatever way I can, like inject that same energy like into the Democratic Party to say like, hey, you actually don't have to capitulate to bullshit, right? You actually don't have to like I think people like look at the results of the past several elections. They look at and they say it's like, well, the country is just conservative, and it's like, yeah, that's true in a lot of ways, and also like people want to believe in something. And I was saying this and then I like got off track about it, like in because I was talking about the 2008 and the 2012 elections and Barack Obama's presidency, right? Like, and I think so many people maybe look back on the history of Barack Obama and they're like, I don't know what they think or why they think he was elected, but it's like, he was elected because he was change, right? Like if you think about that sort of indelible Obama poster, it's like him with like the circle and the word like change, right? Like he represented at least at the time. Now Obama, look, don't even get me started. I could do a whole riff on Barack Obama, and it's fuck Barack Obama over here, right? Like, it's fuck Barack Obama over here. Anyway, like, he at the time represented he represented what Donald Trump represented in 2016. Fundamental societal change, both through his identity as a black man, and also like it represented the like turning of this tide, right? Like it like toward like social progressivism, toward democratic politics, toward like openness and freedom, right? Like that's why he was elected, right? Because the man had a vision, and he was able to communicate that vision, right? Like, now, did he turn out to be just another centrist Democrat who would like deport people and like, yeah, keep us in endless wars and like, right? Yes, of course. Like, of course he was that. Right, someone said what he represented and what he produced didn't align, but it was an opportunity. Correct, right? Like, he represented that thing in the same way that Donald Trump did, right? Like he did not, he is not that thing, but he to people is that thing, right? And like, I don't know, I think about like the only way, like I think the Democratic Party thinks it needs to go further right, like Kamala Harris did by campaigning with fucking Liz Cheney. Like they think they need to go further right, when in fact, no bitch, you need to do some Che Guevara type shit, right? You need to be on some like redistribute the wealth type shit, right? Like, because like that is like that's what people want, right? Like Donald Trump is just happens to be telling them a convenient story, but that's not like but like I think you can, like, because there are people in this country who twice voted for Barack Obama and also twice voted for Trump. Like how, like right, like so like you can't tell me that like people don't want fundamental change, right? And like someone in the chat just wrote, people are tired of symbolic change. That's why Hillary/Kamala's first woman bid was stale, right? Because it's like, I don't give a fuck if you're a woman. I almost said bitch, but I was like, but like not in like a bitch kind of way, but like in a like colloquial kind of bitch kind of way, and I was like, oh no, that's not gonna hit right. So like they're like, I don't care if you're a woman, girl, like what are you gonna do about these bills? These bills are high. What are you gonna do about these housing prices, girl? The house I live in was appraised recently at $480,000. $480,000. This is not a $480,000 house. It's absolutely not. But, and that's not to say my house is a piece of shit. It's not. But like, that's what homes cost. Like, that's insane. What are you going to do about that? Like, what are you going to do about that problem? How are you going to help me tackle that problem? And it feels like the Democrats are just like totally unwilling to like do that. Yeah. So for me, I'm just like, you go as far left as you can. You go to an AOC, it would, Bernie if he wasn't too old, right? Liz Warren, where is my bitch Liz Warren at? She is also too old, though. She's too old. Love you, Liz Warren. Yeah, man, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm going to keep, like, talking about 2024. I'm going to keep talking about 2028 because I think that, like, there's so much nuance and there's such like an important story for us all to like learn and internalize and right, someone said Kamala's 25K tax credit. Girl, I can't afford a house. How is a tax credit gonna help? Correct. What? So, for me, this house is $480,000. What is 25K gonna do for me? What is that gonna do for me, girl? What do I think about Stacey Abrams? Also when I was talking about 2028 candidates, I should have said Stacey Abrams. I can't tell what Stacey Abrams is doing anymore. I know she was either was or still is doing a podcast with the Pod Save America, like in the Pod Save America network. Here's the thing. My mind just went in a couple of different directions because I was like, if I recall correctly, there's an upcoming gubernatorial election in Georgia. Will I think she run for it after having run and lost twice? Maybe. She is the reason that George Biden won. And that's a Freudian slip, George Biden, that, the universe knows. The universe knows. That she is the reason that Joe Biden won Georgia in 2020. Keisha Lance Bottoms is running. I do remember hearing that. So I don't know. I don't think I have an opinion about Stacey Abrams. I do think mostly because it's been a couple of years since she ran and now I don't remember her campaign honestly, but I do remember thinking that she gave more of the sort of centrist Democrat, but like I'm a black woman, so it seems more radical kind of vibe. That's the sort of vibe I got for her. Someone else said I don't think she'd win, but I think her presence would force change in the party. Maybe. I can't tell. And I think it would be hard for her. Hold on. If I'm remembering correctly, Stacey Abrams has not. She was in. So the last time she was in office was in 2017. That and again, I don't think that people need to necessarily hold a current elected office in order to run, but to go from and her position was in the Georgia House of Representatives, so not even in the U.S. Congress, but it was in the Georgia House of Representatives, and so I don't know if she is. I don't know what her vibe is in terms of running. Jasmine Crockett, one of those people that I've seen good sound bites from her, and seems super progressive. Hold on, I'm looking. She's been in office since 2023. I don't think she would run for president. I think that her probable next step, honestly, is Senate in Texas. I mean, not this cycle, because James Tallarico is running for Ted Cruz's seat, which how is Ted Cruz still in the Senate? Somebody needs to tell me that now. So she'll probably, I think a really good step for her would be running for Senate in Texas, because we have to get those seats. We have to Beto's tried twice, Colin Allred tried, now James Tallarico. I think Jasmine Crockett's best step would be trying to get one of those seats in Texas. I saw one more question in here, but maybe I lost it. Ted Cruz is being primaried. Oh, Gretchen Whitmer. Always big Gretch. Big Gretch. I always be forgetting about Big Gretch. Oh, fucking Josh Shapiro. That's who else is gonna run. I knew I was forgetting somebody's name. Fuck, man. Josh Shapiro. Okay, you asked me, you said Gretchen Whitmer, and then I immediately thought about Josh Shapiro, and I'm gonna come back to Gretchen Whitmer. I don't fucking like Josh Shapiro. He's one of those people, you know how you can, like, when you know that somebody wants it, when it just exudes from, like, every pore, right? Josh Shapiro just wants it too badly. And you can tell, like, I remember he was campaigning for Kamala Harris, and I was, like, watching a rally at some point last year, and it was, like, in Pennsylvania, and he was talking, and you can literally, I was listening to him talk, and I could see how much how many videos of Barack Obama he has watched on YouTube, and how he has practiced in the mirror that same cadence. It's creepy and it's weird. And he does that because he wants it so badly. He's like, okay, well, I'll just, like, emulate this guy that everybody likes, and I'll just be like that. No, not Josh Shapiro. And he's also a Zionist. No. If I read us 107 Days, will doubly not like him. It's clear that Kamala Harris does not like that man. She did not say that. She does not like that man. She does not like Josh Shapiro at all. In the same way she doesn't like Benjamin Netanyahu. She don't like them. Gretchen Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer will also probably run. Do I think, from what I've heard about her in Michigan, people really fuck with her. People really, really fuck with Gretchen. And I do think she'd be competitive, like, in, as a 2028 candidate. Whitmer is Michigan's governor. I've heard, yes, someone said we love her. I've heard, and from Black people too, and that matters to me. I've heard, like, that they really like Gretchen. Like, even the name Big Gretch is from, like, Black folks in Detroit. So, people really fuck with her. I talked about Andy Bashir earlier. Ro Khanna. I don't feel like I know a lot about Ro Khanna, and I've heard, like, varying, like, things about him. Hold on. Just doing a quick. He's from the 17th in California. What is that? What district does that represent? The South Bay. Okay, I have a friend in the Bay Area who I'm going to ask about Ro Khanna. I remember he, like, protested at Ro Khanna's office, like, last year. And so I feel like he's one of those people that, like, gives progressive, but, like, maybe isn't totally. I don't know. Wes Moore. I forgot. Yes, Wes Moore. Also another person who wants it too badly. Wes Moore wants it bad. You can see it every time he talks. Now, he is young. He is charismatic. He is, like, all the things. And it feels like you can feel when someone feels inauthentic. And that's why I think, like, someone like Zoran does so well, because, like, like, even when you can tell he's trying, it doesn't come off as trying. It comes off as sincere. And why that matters is because, like, people want to feel like you're not just, like, giving them bullshit, right? And I think someone like Wes Moore, because everything I've seen from him often gives, like, I'm trying really hard, I want this really badly, like, it's sometimes off-putting. That's not saying he couldn't be successful, but I think in order to do that, he needs to, like, I don't know, work on appearing like a human. Like, I don't know how else to say that, but he needs to, like, chill the fuck out sometimes and, like, learn how to be a person. Mark Kelly, and TikTok is making me, like, verify this shit right now. Hold on. Mark Kelly is a no personality. I would agree with that. Really? Okay. Now, don't cancel me. Don't cancel me about Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly has a really good story, and that makes it really easy to vote for him. He's an astronaut. Hold on. This nigga an astronaut and something else. Hold on. Okay. He was in the Navy, and then he was a NASA astronaut, and then his wife got shot, and he, like, was with her, and he, like, supported her through that. Amazing story. Amazing story. Does that translate into good politician? It works in Arizona, and that's fine, but like, does that, I don't know if that works like nationally. Okay, it is 12:45. I need to I actually have a job. I need to go do that job. And have a meeting in 15 minutes. But I want to answer this last question because I've seen it pop up a couple times and I haven't addressed it. Do you think Democrats should appeal more to class rather than race? I think that's a good question. And why I like it is because like it's one of those both and questions. And I don't know, and I know that makes me an asshole. I love living in nuance. I know it makes me an asshole, right? But I think that like it's yes and it's and. Right, someone just said class and race are intertwined. They can do both. Took like you literally took the words out of my brain. Yes, because like in America, class is almost inextricable from race, right? Like they are not the same thing, but they are intertwined, right? In that like your economic position and where you live, where you go to school, where you work, right? All those things like are shaped by class, which is then shaped by race because of how race functions in America. Bro, you're such a liberal. What the fuck does... whatever. Again, I have a job. I have shit to do. Let me finish this thought. And so I think that, like, I think that what the Democrats need to do is, like, their primary message needs to be class, and they also need to address how that... how the impacts of class are differential by race. And so what do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. So if I'm a Democrat and I'm running and I'm proposing universal childcare, right? Because it's insane that we don't have universal childcare in this country, right? If I'm a Democrat, I'm proposing universal childcare. And someone says, how, tell me about your universal childcare policy. I'd say, great. Thanks so much for asking me that question. We need universal childcare in this country because we recognize that, like, it is important for parents to be... Why are you out of breath? Okay, I'm not out of breath. This is just how I talk, and I feel like people have been talking about it a lot recently. I'm like literally not. I just like talk breathlessly. If someone said, I'm like, we need to like, parents are like being crushed under the weight of the cost of childcare, and we need policies that address and remedy that. In particular, we need policies that address the fact that like there's not enough childcare for Black children, and the childcare that is available is not as good as that for childcare for white children, and that's because of the impacts of slavery and systemic racism in this country. Therefore, what I want to do is, ensure that all parents have access to universal childcare in their neighborhoods, and in particular, I want to focus on developing childcare centers that like are particularly designed for Black families. That was a shitty answer, but like I think you get what I'm getting at. It's like you need to be able, you can talk about class, and you also need to talk about the ways that like racism and race in it like are intertwined with class. And so like I think that like we don't need to do either or, right? Like, and I think like, which is a thing that often happens with Democrats. I don't think that slavery should be mentioned in any talking points, but I strongly disagree. Slavery, we don't bring up slavery enough. Like, we don't bring up slavery enough. But again, a side point, but like, if I'm talking about race and class, like, we should always be talking about the intersections of those things, and how like any policies that are addressing class inequality and class issues need to also address the impact of racism and the legacy of slavery in this country. Aren't universal education and universal childcare? I think so. Yeah, in some way intertwined. I think so. Yeah, I think that like, yeah, I think so. I think that like we have shown that like we can implement a universal education system. Like now, how equal that universal education system is clearly up for debate, but like we have shown that we can implement one. And I think that like universal childcare is a natural extension of that. Okay, I really have to go now. I have a meeting in 10 minutes. Thank you all so much for joining me on live. I'm going to post this video on my channels. Thanks so much, guys. Okay, now I'm realizing I don't actually know how to turn off a live, so y'all about to watch me struggle for a minute. There we go.